have, speaking of the new councilors, we only had one contested race this year for election. How do we get more people involved wanting to either, whether it be run for a council seat or fill some of these vacancies in some of these different committees?
You know, it's been that's something that we have struggled with for the entire 12 years I was on council and before that. Mm-hmm. It is a big commitment, and you have to look at it like you're not in there for one particular reason. You know, you may be really against something, so you're going to run for city council and you're going to make sure that's not there. That's not going to happen. But that's not a reason to do it, because you're dealing with everything, and you're dealing with policy and change. Mm-hmm. It's a big time commitment, and you know, people are busy. Mm-hmm. And maybe they don't want to be criticized. I have fairly thin skin, but I learned to just whatever. Mm-hmm. And maybe they don't want to be politically correct, like I don't want to be politically correct, but I've had to for 12 years. I don't have an answer. I really don't. It doesn't take a genius to do it. It just takes somebody that wants to give their time and use a little common sense, and again, time's the most important thing we have, so people just don't want to give that up. Right. Excuse me.
So when you're off council, are you going to be attending the meetings or watching them on TV, or what are you going to do with your Monday evenings?
Watch football. Well, it's not just Monday evenings. I mean, there's other, there's committee meetings, there's special meetings, there's executive sessions, there are all sorts of stuff. But I'd like to get on the Parks Board, and I'd like to get back on Keizer Point's Interest, which I was on as the council liaison when it started. But for the first time in the history, since we started, there's no openings. And there's going to be no openings on the Parks Board. And because of a decision that we made 4 years ago, that I helped make, I cannot apply or be considered until I'm off council now. So those openings are all going to be filled before I'm eligible. And it kind of irritates me, but I was one of the ones that pass that little bit of legislation, so I'm going to have to wait. But I would like to get on those two committees.
So remember, that was one of the things you talked about when you said you're not going to run again, was that in essence you and Brandon were going to swap seats. You would take your council seat, you would take the Parks Board seat, but then the Parks Board got filled up.
Right, and there, there was, I think, 3 openings. And generally, we can't get enough people to fill things, and just all of a sudden everybody came out of the woodwork, and so I have to wait till after January 5th, and so when an opening comes, hopefully I'll have an application in and get chosen by the volunteer coordinating committee to fill one of those positions.
So what overall will we be doing with more time, with your free time?
I don't know. I can assure you, my wife Darlene will find things for me to do if I don't, if I'm not productive enough. I'll be able to work a little more. That has taken up some time. Not a lot. I've learned to work around that, but sometimes. When you have noon meetings or 11 o'clock meetings, or a meeting goes from 12 to 2, I have to pay somebody to do my work, and this will free me up a little bit to do that. Not that I like to work all that much, but got to pay the bills. Yeah. So,
how much time then would you estimate you put into council or council-related things, whether it be studying for the meeting, meeting itself, committee meetings or special meetings, how many hours would you guess you put in a week?
Yeah, of course it varies. I'd probably average 10 to 12. That might be high, 8 to 12, somewhere in there. Yeah, that's probably close.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's, if you consider phone calls to other counselors talking about things, one thing I'm going to miss is Lori and I almost always talked on Sunday nights.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, we always did. I'd call her, she'd call me, and we always, we talked a lot anyway, but Sunday nights, 4 council meetings, we talked about different things, so. So now I just have to call her just to talk.
I'm gonna say, are you gonna continue the talks?
I've talked with Kathy about going to council meetings, and I'm not real interested in going and sitting in a lot of council meetings, and I have Dish TV, so I don't get them on television. When it comes to Area C and the Herbert property, which I still can't talk about either of those, I probably will testify simply because of the background I have on what's going on there, and I think it'll be helpful.
Right.
Other than that, I'll trust the elected officials to do the right thing, and I don't want to be a pain in their rear. And but those 2 things I am going to talk about simply because of my involvement in those things.
Sure.
Which both staff had hoped to have done before the change, but that hasn't been possible.
Right. So if something were to bear your name or be named after you here in Keizer, what would you want it to be?
Oh, River Road. No. I don't know. It isn't something I thought about. I suppose if we ever get an indoor facility, maybe something like that, but that's not important.
So not the boat ramp?
No, that's Walsh.
Well, it's Walsh Way, but
Well, that's
you probably
Walsh's
have
Landing.
Walsh Way. He'd probably be willing to share it with you, right?
Nah. That was Rich's deal. That's one of the things. I was there from the beginning when he started on that little rant about Keizer Rapids, and Lori and I still, at the time, we just went, okay, here goes Richard. Okay, Richard, just whatever. And amazingly, he pulled that off, and he was a one-man show, and it took everybody, and it took a lot of different agencies and to make that happen, but Richard Walsh was the guy who did that, and proud to be his friend.
What have you learned about politics, government, and Keizer in particular during these last 12 years, and then even going back further than that with Parks Board?
People are frustrated because everything takes a long time. And if you don't vet everything, you usually don't have a good product. And it's frustrating. And it was frustrating to me. I'm one of those people, my dad's favorite saying was, don't worry about the horses being blind, hook up the wagon. Well, it just doesn't work. And I think that we found through the initiative system with the state that so many initiatives are badly written because they're not vetted. They're personal. A group of people get together, and for personal reasons, all their thoughts are in these initiatives, and they may be good ideas, but there's holes in them. And I think the marijuana issue is a perfect one. I believe that having the edibles available is a bad idea. But it is, and it was passed, so that's the way it is. But I think that going slow and taking the time and writing and rewriting things and getting it right is the way to go, and it's just frustrating to people, but your end product is much better. Even though some people may not agree with it, it's still a better product. And you know, the things that the legislature does, very few of those things are overturned in courts. But there's been many examples of initiatives that have passed that were later overturned because they just weren't done well. Mm-hmm. Even though the idea might have been good, the law itself wasn't done well. So that's one of the things I learned, and there's a reason for that, and it's a good reason.
Mm-hmm. What are the upcoming key topics or key issues for Keizer?
I think the biggest one is going to be urban growth. Mm-hmm. And I am pro-urban growth, but I think it needs to be very slow and very controlled. What I am pro about, that we should have the choice. And of course that we don't have our own choice. We have other entities, mainly Salem, who's the big voice on the block, who has to agree that we be able to do that. So that's going to be a big issue, and I think in the next 4 to 6 years that will be an issue, and how that is addressed, I'm not really sure how that's going to be done. Mm-hmm. That'll be up to people in charge, and that won't be me.
So on a grading scale, just a couple weeks ago we had a poll asking readers what they thought of Mayor Lori Crisper's time as mayor.
You don't need to do one on me.
Well, I'm not going to do one on you, but I'm going to ask you, what grade would you give yourself as counselor?
B.
B?
You can put down A, but I don't know. You know, it's hard. Mm-hmm. That's hard. I think I've done a good job. Mm-hmm. Whether I've done exceptional to get an A.
So a solid B, you think?
Sure.
B plus?
Yeah, I'll go to Oregon State. I don't need to go to Harvard. No, yeah, I think yeah, it depends. Are we grading on a curve, or are we...
No curve.
No curve. I guess if I looked at it, and, you know, you can always say, I wish I would have done this. And that's the worst thing you can say in the world, I wish I would have. Mm-hmm. Times and maybe I wish I would have been more involved. Maybe so it's hard. That's the reason I wouldn't give myself an A. I don't know. I'd give Lori an A.
Yeah.
Maybe she'd give me one too. I don't know. That's hard.
Yeah.
Like again, if you're doing this for ego, find something else to do.